welcome to the Faith and Fandom podcast. This is the Artist Alley Aftermath edition for Smoky Mountain Fan Fest 2024. That is a whole mouthful. But just coming to you to bring the reflection, thoughts, etc. for the con I just attended. It was a 2.5 day show in Kingsport, Tennessee, which is kind of right on the line of Bristol, Johnson City, somewhere in that area. It has been maybe a full 5 years since I've done a show in Tennessee, and I tend not to do many shows in Tennessee. Tennessee also already has a fair amount of people doing good ministry there. Shout out to the Spakeses. It's also just far, and I do have some regional relative trauma associated with the area. So it's not like my number one priority of places to go. And I don't know that this show would have been on my radar. I like watching shows develop and checking out all their guests and everything. And this definitely has maybe some of the best guests in Tennessee shows. Fanboy Expo does a lot too, but I met CJ, who was a cosplayer at one of the older shows that I did in Tennessee when it was Conapalooza in that same convention center. And just kind of stayed connected with him, and I got involved with this show specifically because he extended me an invitation about participating in it, and so that's how I got plugged back into it, and I'll kind of follow up with some of that towards the end. But for the most part, it was a pretty heavily stacked show in terms of guests. A lot of actors from The Walking Dead, the dude that played Abraham, the dude that played Ezekiel, the Carl. There's a handful of those guys, a bunch of the dudes from The Walking Dead, like Bobby Elvis, and Ron Perlman's character, Juice. There's a bunch of the Tig, a bunch of those guys. There was folks from Halloween Town. Kevin Smith was there. I've probably already said that. Jason Mewes, Ethan Suplee, the original April O'Neil live action. There's a handful of big name folks there. And one of the things I will say wholeheartedly is that in terms of Artist Alley tables, it was ridiculously cost effective, because for a guest list that girthy, it was only $150 for table space, and they gave us 8-foot tables. And I will tell you this: you want to love your vendors well, give them an 8-foot table, because 6 feet just reminds you that you're too poor for an 8-foot table. An 8-foot table feels like you're in like first class, and you can do so much more with an 8-foot table than you can with a 6-foot table. It's crazy the difference that 2 feet makes. But that being said, $150 for that kind of guest list was pretty astonishing. I made the drive up to Tennessee on Friday. It's about a 5.5 hour drive. There was a lot of tension and just kind of emotional exhaustion because my region was coming off of a hurricane. And as I drove to the convention, there was still a, let's say, 40% chance that my church building could get flooded. The water had stopped from the rain, but the river was still rising. There was a chance that while I was gone, the church building could get flooded. And so I had some anxiety with that. And there's also some other things that were just kind of like weighing heavily on me. But regardless, I was following through with it because I spent the whole time too, like, as the hurricane was approaching, like, do I drive up a few days early so that I don't get trapped in with the roads? And then, the idea of sitting in a hotel alone for 2 days made me sad. And my daughter, Rosa, was moving out when I was leaving to go to the School of Math and Science, which is 2.5 hours away. So, my kid was leaving. There's a lot going on. So, made the drive up there. And once I got there, I will say this, the Meadowview Convention Center has some of the easiest load in, load out spaces of any convention center I've been a part of. I also, because it's been 5 years since I've been there, I forgot that there's a golf course on site. And guess who didn't bring their golf clubs? I was so sad. Every time I passed by a window and saw somebody playing golf, I was kind of heartbroken that I didn't bring golf clubs. Normally, I wouldn't have had time to play golf anyway, but dang it, it would have been nice to try. So got there Thursday, spent some time getting set up. Now, while this show had immense generosity in giving us 8-foot tables, there was also the complication of next to no table depth. Like, normally, if you get a 6-foot table, you get, 4 to 5 feet to 6 feet behind you for banners and for things like that. This, I want to say maybe the space from table to table was 5 feet, meaning that each person had 2.5 feet ish, roughly, from my fake measurements. So it was tight, like, in that capacity. We got more room, but also less room at the same time. So I'll still take the more room, but it definitely made other aspects of this in terms of coming and going inconvenient. My table was next to a lady, or a couple ladies that were witches, and I want to say that their booth was called the Bone Witch, if I'm not mistaken, with an X replacing the C. And they sold, like, ingredients for magic. And they were not upset, but they had concerns because of part of what they wanted their booth to do was to set up tarot card readings at their booth, where someone could come behind their booth and sit back in the booth and get a tarot card reading. And they were unhappy with the amount of space because of that. Now, as you're listening to that, you're thinking, that sounds fun. I can say this. We never had any beef or problems, and they were very nice, and I think we got along really well. Because, again, I think it's, it's always one of those funny mashups. And also to say that Ashley from Fangirling Over Jesus was at the same show, on the same row as me, but on the opposite end. And her booth was directly across from a Has-Been Hotel booth. That was just Has-Been Hotel art. So they put the one Jesus booth next to a witchcraft table, and they put the other Jesus booth across from Has-Been Hotel. So either the cons got jokes, or God does, or somebody, but it was just funny. Either way, I think it went well for everybody, and it was, went well in terms of all those things. But yeah, got set up, and it took a while to set up. This is my first big show setting up by myself in a while, because almost every other show this year, I've had another person with me to help me set up. And it makes a difference. It just really does, in terms of unfolding t-shirts and putting displays out and stuff like that. So it made it a bit harder. I am grateful that my friends that helped me pack up at GalaxyCon packed up the shirts so well, because it made a difference. It took me a couple hours to get set up, and a neat thing is my booth was only technically 2 tables away from Kevin Smith. It was technically only 2 tables away from Jason Mewes, and technically only 2 tables away from Ethan Supley. So it was neat. Just being in eyesight of some of the bigger names. Just as I was setting up and kind of being around for that. None of the celebrities were really in the room at that point, except Judith Hogue, who plays April O'Neil, and Ming from Comic Book Men, because basically they had the big room filled with the vendors, and the Artist Alley room with Artist Alley, but there were celebrities in both rooms, so you had to come into Artist Alley to see the celebrities, which made a big difference for us, I believe. Otherwise, we could have got lost in the shuffle. So kudos on that for booking at that capacity. Got set up. Ashley from Fangirling Over Jesus was a little ways behind in terms of travel and everything, so I went back to my hotel room, which is nice. This is one of the few places I will book my hotel room in the same convention center as the con, just because there's not a lot. Well, you know what? There didn't used to be a lot nearby. Now there's a lot more hotels nearby, but the convenience of this is just too hard to mess up. And so I went back to my hotel room, and I was overlooking the golf course, which again made me sad. But I cooled off because, sweating profusely, and the TV in my room had options for streaming sign-in, so I signed into Netflix and watched One Piece, and cooled off while Ashley was still getting there, because I was going to help her unload. And low-key, I forgot to log out of my Netflix in Kentucky, or in Tennessee, so if you happen to end up in room 354 of the Meadowview Marriott Bonvoy, log out of my Netflix. I'd appreciate it. Once Ashley got there, I went back down and helped her unload, and she brought Bucky, her dog that is being trained as a service animal, with her, who is a big old horse of a puppy, and he instantly liked me, which was good. And I helped her set up, and because you had to be done setting up by 7. And then Ashley and I went over to Pal's, which is a local Eastern Tennessee hot dog and burger establishment, and we got some food and then sat outside and just kind of chatted about life and stuff as we went on. And yeah, we parted ways, and I went back to my hotel room and kind of got prepared for the weekend a little bit more. There's a pool and a hot tub at the hotel, so I got in the hot tub for a little while, and I made a Walmart run and got some food for the weekend and some shoes, because there is a pickleball court in that town, and I forgot my shoes, and so Ashley and I had said we were going to play pickleball while we were there, because I only played pickleball a little bit. I've played 4 games prior to this weekend. So got to the show, rested, and kind of just got ready for everything, and then kicked off. The VIPs could get into the show at 9 a.m., so I wanted to be in my room by 8. And there was even a Starbucks in the lobby, so could get coffee. I mean, it's stupid convenient, because this place is still small enough to be manageable, but has about every convenience you could want. And just the location genuinely is a good selling point for doing the show, and it's just pretty cool in itself. But yeah, got ready, set up, and kind of kicked things off, and it was pretty consistent in terms of people coming through. Not crazy sales out the bat or anything, but one of the first comments I got was a couple young ladies came by the booth and was looking through things, and one of the first things they said is like, I really just wish there was something like this when I was in middle school. And that was one of those things that was an encouragement to me, because that's something that says, you know, I am filling a gap. I am filling a hole that needs to be filled, or is helpful to be filled. And was grateful for that. Then I also ran into some youth pastors that wanted to talk about anime. That was pretty neat. There was a young lady who recognized me from a Bible camp that I spoke at, and that I haven't spoke at maybe since 2017 or 18, maybe. But I haven't spoken there in a long while. But she recognized me. She had actually went on to be a camp missionary at a camp in North Carolina, and now she's a youth pastor, or she's a children's minister in North Carolina. She did youth ministry as well, and works at a school. It's just, it was neat to have a connection, but literally the only person that like recognized me that day, like outside of like, because I don't do a lot of shows in Tennessee, but she recognized me from me being a camp speaker like a lifetime ago, and that was pretty cool. With that, there was a young cosplayer that came by and, browsed and looked. And again, the God is a Fan of You shirt it's doing more and better than I really hoped for, because it's connecting with people. And I had another 50 God is a Fan of You stickers to give away throughout the weekend, and I was really grateful for that opportunity. Still have a few left. I think I'm going to bring to the next shows I'm doing, but was able to do that. But there's a young lady that came by after seeing the God is a Fan of You shirt and hanging a while, and she said, I'm not really in a place where I have any kind of a relationship with God, but I want to start taking some steps in that direction, and I think this might help. And I literally, I was like, that's why this is here, because I want this to be able to be something that people who are taking steps can find as a landing pad for that, or like an on-ramp, and for people that are already believers and Kiki to be encouraged. And I about teared up at that one. Then I met Mariah, who works with, if I believe I'm saying it correctly, is Isaiah House, which is part of a foster care ministry house. And she said that she was interested in, she thought these books might be good for some of the teens and their place. And, listen, if you're telling me I get to come to a con and help bless foster children, I'm here for that. That's what I'm here for. Literally what I'm here for. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm there for. And yeah, it was good. I've got a note in here and I don't remember what it was, but either way. The day went on, and Saturday was good. For the most part, it was a solid-ish day, and some good experiences with it. And then at the end of the day, we went and played pickleball. And not to brag, but a little. I remain undefeated. I've won all 7 games of pickleball I've played. So if you think you should be intimidated, you're correct. But it was good. It was good. And they have a really nice pickleball facility out for free in Kingsport. But one thing about Kingsport is there's like a giant factory mill thingy out there, and it smells. So in the middle of playing in this nice facility, get like this waft of stank, and it was real potent, but it was still a good experience with that. Um, my CJ, who's the guy who introduced me, or like who made contact with me with the show, also introduced me to some other to a dude um, that is a huge Godzilla fan, and he had reached out to me a few months back to see if I had any Godzilla content in my books, and I told him that I was writing one on Godzilla -1. I just need to get around to it. But yeah, definitely need to follow through with that and check on it. On Saturday, yeah, I think this was Saturday. Um, there was a young lady who, and I don't know her story. I don't know what was going on with her. She wasn't very vocal. Because here's the deal: when someone would buy something, or they would at least spend some time at the table talking to them, if I could see that they were interested, I would offer them a "God is a fan of you" sticker, because I didn't want to push or proselytize with that. But that was just kind of my MO. I like wait for you to make a good connection and then offer it. And so she stopped at the booth. Like, I greeted her, and it was clear she didn't want to have a conversation. And she stood there as I had conversations with other people, and she literally read the entire Can I Still Wear My Cape book. Then she read the entire Flockwork comic book. And then she read a full chapter out of either Faith and Fandom Junior or Faith and Fandom 4. So let's say she was there a solid 40 minutes to 30 minutes. And then she bought a Samwise sketch that was in my little bookmark book. And after she read the chapter, she said my stuff was very insightful. But when I offered her a "God is a fan of you" sticker, she said that she would pass. And, not that says everything, but, there's stuff going on in her heart. And she made an impact on me. And I prayed for her for whatever is going on in her heart and her life, and hope God opens some opportunities with that. As I was finished up my Saturday, going into Sunday, I saw that there was a cleaning lady cart in the hallway running back and forth, and I Sunday morning, first thing I did was take all of my luggage down to the car, and I saw that there was a cleaning cart in the hallway. Saw the cleaning lady, and she had really cool stickers all over her cleaning cart. It kind of looked like my laptop. And just kind of made note of that. Went and unloaded all my stuff, packed it up. I forgot something on the show floor, had to go back to my room, etc., etc. And I saw her cart a couple more times. So when the show opened, maybe the first 15, 20 minutes of the show, she came by, like, just shopping with one of the other cleaning ladies. I was like, "Ma'am, excuse me, are you cleaning up on the third floor?" And she's like, and she looked really, really shocked that I called her out for that, like that. And she said, "Yeah, I'm still cleaning." I said, "I just saw your cart, and it was really cool. And, I have a lot of Jesus-y stuff here, and, this isn't pushing it on you, but if you like any of the stickers, I just wanted to give you one of my stickers to put on your cleaning cart." And so and then the other cleaning lady said, "See, you're doing a good job." And she picked the "Just Poopin', you know how I be" Michael Scott sticker to put on her cleaning cart. So I just thought that was pretty neat. I ran into, again, a couple that I'd met at Raleigh. And they're a young couple. They're just really cool. They travel around a lot to concerts. They travel around to a lot of cons. They just enjoy being on a journey and their stuff. And so they talked to me for literally a solid 45 minutes that morning, I feel like. And it was just really cool conversation to talk to them and Really enjoyed that. But I'd seen them at Raleigh and some stuff like that. And then there was also a lady who came by in a Breaking Bad shirt, and I told her I liked her Breaking Bad shirt. She had just met Walt's son, Walter Jr. was there from Breaking Bad, signing autographs and stuff. And she saw the "God is a fan of you" shirt, and she got choked up and she started crying a little bit and just got emotional about it. And we started talking about why I made that shirt, and that it's hard for us to believe that God, that anybody loves us, let alone God, but to say God likes you is a good kind of probing question. And we just hit it off and we talked about it, and she was really blessed, and it was a really good experience with that. Mariah from the Isaiah House came back and she wanted to get one of every book to have for their ministry, and I tried to just give her I'm not telling you this to brag, but just to say it was a neat interaction. I tried to just give her all the books, like 10 of them. And she's like, I get what you're doing, ministry to ministry, I get it. And so we reverse haggled to let her pay for some of it. And because, I think it's an awesome ministry. And literally scripture says this is worship that God finds pleasing, is to care for widows and orphans. So I'm not passing those opportunities up. So I hope really big things come from Isaiah House, and I get some opportunities there to be a blessing. Also, Mariah added me on Instagram, and she's a huge Dude on the Line fan, which is another great connection point, because I love Dude on the Line. And yeah, so a lot of celebrities were just walking by. Like, I saw the Seventh Doctor a dozen times. I never went up to his booth, I never talked to him, but I saw him a whole bunch. And it was neat just to see the Doctor running around acting like the Doctor. I saw Ron Perlman, Hellboy slash, the dad from Sons of Anarchy slash Beauty and the Beast, like all the things that he is. I saw him just walking in the lobby in front of me at one point. One of my favorite celebrity in-person interactions was Theo Rawson, I believe is his name. He's the dude who plays Juice on Sons of Anarchy. He also plays Shades on Luke Cage. I am walking through the hotel lobby on Saturday, and I'm wearing my Yeet shirt from Jey Uso, which, if you haven't listened to it or read it, there's a Jey Uso devotional on this subject. And I'm walking through there, and I walk past Theo slash Juice, and he goes, yeet, and he yeets at me and fist bumps me. And then we walk together and get on the elevator together and have a whole discussion about the current state of storytelling in the WWE. And then he fist bumps me and leave. And I'm just like, that's cool. Just to have that kind of conversation with a celebrity over something we both enjoy. It was just neat. And that to me is better than paying for an autograph. I've paid a lot of people for a lot of autographs and a lot of people for a lot of photos, and that type of interaction is cool. Saturday night, also to say, they had a karaoke thing hosted by Ming from Comic Book Men, but I genuinely was tired. And after racquetball and everything else. Oh, also during racquetball, I don't know if I dove, if I tripped, I tumbled, whatever. I reached further than my body was meant to, and I rolled. I absolutely crushed a pickleball that was in my pocket. Banged up my shoulder pretty bad, and before I was done with it, lovingly slammed my head on the concrete-ish surface. It wasn't too bad, and low-key I'm thankful for my man bun, because it probably saved me some brain damage. But yeah, that was fun. But going back to the celebrity interactions, before the show was over, I gave Judith Hogue, who played April O'Neil, an April O'Neil button that I had made. And at one point in time, I saw this really dope Darkwing Duck cosplayer walking through, and I wanted to take a photo of Darkwing Duck's cosplay. But then I realized she was holding hands with someone, and they came to my booth, and the person she was holding hands with is the voice actor for Max Goof from a Goofy movie. And I wanted to take a photo of the cosplayer, but she's holding hands with Max Goof. And I don't want to be like, hey, excuse me, Max Goof, can you please get out of the photo so I can take a picture of this Darkwing Duck cosplayer? And if I try and take a photo of them, I don't want to get charged for a Max Goof photo. So I just didn't take one. But Max Goof came to my table for like a second or two. So there's that. But yeah, that happened. Let's see what else. There was a lady that I had a good bonding moment with over one of my little sketches for Peter Capaldi, and she bought my 12th Doctor sketch, and I love some Peter Capaldi, and he is my doctor, and we just had a solid 15-minute conversation about how great he is. And that was a great time. And as the show was ending, I had another long conversation with I believe, mom and daughter about Karlach from Baldur's Gate 3 and gushing over that character as well. Another thing was like the lines were steady for Kevin Smith a lot, like his whole day, like he was nonstop. But when things would die down, Jason Mewes, Jay from Jay and Silent Bob, would start bouncing a ball off the walls and catching it. And I'm just really funny to watch Jay play catch off the walls in the room. So enjoyed that experience, enjoyed what that looked like. And then there was a dude who my sketches did pretty well there at this show in terms of just people enjoying them. And one dude on Friday bought like 5 or 6 sketches and a couple stickers, and he asked me like early on Saturday if I had any Batman. I said no, but I'll draw one for you. So I drew a Batman, and he came back sure enough before the show was over on Saturday and bought the Batman. And he said, all right, can I get an Adam West Batman, a Burt Ward Robin, and a strawberry shortcake? So I drew all those, and he came by the booth and bought all those. And it just so happened that I didn't realize it at that moment. He dropped an envelope full of cash at my table, like it was hanging out the edge of my table. And a cosplayer came up who is a kind of a cross between a Mandalorian and a clone trooper slash Jedi. And he was talking about combining his faith with his cosplay, and that he used to do a lot of that, and he used to run a lightsaber small group in California. It was just, we had this cool conversation, and then he realized there was an envelope of cash, and he took it and turned it in. And then like literally as soon as the doors were closed on the con, the dude who bought all my sketches showed back up, and was able to help get him his envelope full of cash back. And I was grateful for how God layered all that together. When I got to the unloading portion of the show, all of my tires were low on air, and was really grateful for Ashley being around because she had an entire inflator thing. And the drive home, basically just drove home, listened to music, ate some snacks, and made it back to my house about 12:30 a.m. And and CJ had called me about the dude's money so we could help track that down, and he thanked me for my thing. Now, I waited till the end of the podcast to bring this up because I didn't want to start off negative, but I also want to be genuine with you and with everybody else. There was some heavy emotions for me with how some of the stuff played out with this. And And I tried really hard to make sure I didn't run by my emotions and I didn't let them change how I did anything. Uh, as I mentioned, and before I say this, there's no beef. I have no resentment. Where there's no problems with CJ or the show, but I had emotions about how it initially happened. Okay. CJ had contacted me in November, and I went back through my messages to see how the train of conversation went to make sure I wasn't missing something. CJ had contacted me back in November and asked me if I would do this show and that he wanted to have Geek Church here. And that's why I said yes. Because technically I've already used all of my Sundays that I'm allowed off from my church job role. I'd already used those. GalaxyCon was my last one, and this one was over capacity. Like, I missed an extra week of my congregation. And so the initial offer was made in November. In December, I got a confirmation saying, yes, you're all good for Geek Church. Plan on it. I booked my room, booked the hotel, all these things. In April, I reached back out to see, hey, do I need to fill out any paperwork for Geek Church? Do I need to send stuff in? He said, yeah, just send some photos and stuff like that, but I didn't need to fill anything out. And after 3 points of communication of, yes, this is confirmed, I stopped, pestering him. And then, we got into summer. We got into all the other cons, Heroes Con, Galaxy Con, all the other stuff that I'm doing. And so, I just took it for where it was. And then on Wednesday or Thursday of last week, I reached out to say, hey, what time is Geek Church? I wanted to go ahead, because one of the things I do is I always print laminated posters to put at my booth to advertise when Geek Church is. I said, hey, I just want to check what time is Geek Church so that I can, advertise it. And he responds back a few minutes later to say, oh, it looks like it didn't make it onto the schedule. Now, the only reason I was doing this show was initially because of Geek Church. And there was another local show that I regularly do that costs me half of the table money and no hotel money. So just in terms of having another show opportunity, this was more expensive in general, because it went from being a $70 show opportunity to a $500 show opportunity when you add in the hotel. And so I got a little flustered with that, just that portion of it. Then, because my daughter was moving out this weekend, I got one less day with my kid, and I wasn't able to take her to her new school and be there to drop her off. And I was all the emotions. So, I told him, I was like, look, I get it. You're not the only one making decisions here. It happens. There's limited panel space. And it's like, I tried to be as graceful as I could with it and not be dishonest. And then as I'm driving up Friday morning, I'm like, I don't know, 2.5 hours. Like, I think I'm almost to Virginia at this point. I get a message and it says, hey, they said that they would love for you to have Geek Church, but it needs to be at 9 a.m. outside in the courtyard, which is behind the convention center. So technically they were saying you can do it, but it needs to be an hour before the show actually starts, and it needs to be behind the convention center, which I've done cons with Geek Church with other organizations that the church services happen prior to the show, and the response is not always great. But beyond because of how it would have been outside, and you would have had to have been in the building and get through the building before the show is technically open, before you could get in there, which means it would be like next to no possibility. And also because the conversation about that scheduling didn't happen until the day before the show, like there was no online presence or anything. I was in my emotions. I was angry. I was sad. I was frustrated. I had a lot of feelings in a lot of different directions. And the fact that all this was happening while I was driving alone in my car through the mountains. And like, so I called a couple friends. I called one of my friends who's not really a believer, but who deals with cons, and ran the situation by them just to vent. And I called Ashley from Fangirling Over Jesus, and we talked for a hot minute as we went through the discussions with it and everything. Because I didn't want to respond in my flesh. Even though I was upset, I didn't want to do anything. Because listen, CJ invited me to the show. He made an effort to get Geek Church to be part of it. He went through all the channels that he was supposed to have. But it's a team effort. Other people actually own and run the show. And based on the fact that they only had one panel room, it didn't make the cut. I don't need to hold on to frustration. The situation isn't what I thought it was going to be. Because I did have one couple, the couple that I met at Raleigh, literally came and asked me if we were having Geek Church because they remembered me advertising that I was. And I also didn't want to turn an opportunity down, but I knew that it was a weird opportunity at that point to do it last minute. And CJ and I talked about it at the show, and I understood, and he said, definitely next year. And it made me, here's some things I learned from that. One, I realized I had a bit of entitlement going on in my mind of like, I was told this, I deserve this, going on. And the reality is, y'all, I'm getting to talk about Jesus and represent Jesus in a secular environment where I'm welcomed and invited. If I don't get to have the platform I expect, air quotes, in the way I want it, I don't need to have aggression when things don't go my way. Yeah. I just did GalaxyCon, and I had a great panel, and I had a great church service, and they advertised it and they did all the things. And, I had that, and I can't expect every response to be the same in every place. And the fact that I was even considered to do it in the first place, I need to take as a win. And I need to see the positives of it. Now, I'm not telling you all this because I want you to say, oh, boycott this show. Or anything. I'm not doing any of that. That's shenanigans. I'm strongly considering going back depending on where the schedules lie. They just announced that it's going to be a 3-day show now. As long as the prices don't go through the roof, I might consider it because it was a good show regardless. But I wanted to be transparent with you because, Scripture tells us to weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. And if I'm going to tell you about, the big wins of GalaxyCon, and I don't tell you the fact that I was offered Geek Church and then it didn't happen, and I was angry and sad about it. If I don't tell you that, I'm not being honest. But at the same time, I'm not bad-mouthing the show. I'm not bad-mouthing CJ. I'm not poo-pooing on anybody's cornflakes. It's just, it sucked. And I had to be mature and spiritually disciplined enough not to throw a tantrum about it. So, razzle dazzle. That's how that went. But I asked some of y'all to pray for me in the situation because I was struggling emotionally, not just with that, but with my daughter leaving. I was a hot mess of feelings. And I'm grateful for y'all that did pray for me. And on that note, let me take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters because I mean this wholeheartedly. I would not have been able to have done this weekend without my Patreon supporters, without what y'all have shared, what y'all have blessed me with, because the reality is this was a good show, but this was not a show that I made back my financials on in terms of investment. I believe the table got paid for, but not the hotel and not the travel. And so literally y'all helped make all of this possible. So I am grateful for our Patreon supporters for making this functional. So I want to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters, David Brooks, Jeff Weimer, Colin Sproles, Jamie Montgomery, Matthew Coleman, the Coleman family. The Coleman family. Jonathan Herman, Ron Petit, Gear Saber Cosplay, which the cosplayer that ran a lightsaber small group had a lot of big questions about Gear Saber cosplay, so I shared some info with that. Scott Ward, Alicia Glenn, Candace Davis, Jay Sheed, Jason Crutchfield, Mike Perna, Todd Turner, John Jacobs, Zach Harris, Caleb Grimm, Jeanette Skaggs, Jason Bullock, Christina Ray, Sarah Lewis, Patrick Gale, Rebecca Godlove, Adam Davis. Thank you all for supporting. Thank you all for encouraging. Thank you for being who you are and helping make all of this possible. I have the next 4 weekends in a row of con opportunities, all one-day shows. The 17th, I will be at Wake Forest Comic Con. The 23rd, I believe, whatever that Friday is, I will be at Fayetteville Nerd Market. The 31st, I will be at the Brothers Boyd Con in Hadlock, North Carolina. And then the 7th, I will be at the little con I host at my church, Vertical Mini Con, on September 7th. And for those 4 in a row. So I hope to see you all at a con soon.